there was nothing east of my house.
We heard you the first time.
I'd just like to do it. We've got a great speaker scheduled for today, and I've got a couple announcements, so we're going to get started a little bit early. I've asked Erin to do the four-way test, and Lana Hiskey will give the blessing on the food, and Julianne will do the pledge, which we'll do first.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that we could meet together weekly as Rotarians, and that we pray that Thou will help us find those that are in need, and that we can be of service to the many different groups in our area. We're so grateful for the freedoms we have in this country, and we pray that we'll be able to be good examples to those that we're around. We're grateful for the food that's been prepared for us today. We pray that we'll bless it as well as ourselves, that we can stay healthy and be able to have enough energy to carry out the various service activities we do. We do say these things in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, that's me. Four-way test are the things we think, say, or do.
First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Well, this is a favorite to introduce. It's Rick Nielsen, our superintendent of Nebo Schools. He's been the superintendent for the last 12 years. And not only that, he was the Utah School Superintendent of the Year in 2020. So he represented all of the school districts. So that was exciting. He started his career teaching 6th grade. Then he became an elementary school principal, then a district administrator. And luckily we have him as our superintendent. He received his master's degree at the Brigham Young University. He's on the Utah Valley Board of Trustees. He's been the co-chair, or maybe still is the co-chair, of the Utah Valley MTech K-16 Alliance, as well as the BYU Public School Partnership. And he's been past president of the Utah State Superintendent Association. My word, that's lots of accolades there. But now I'll tell you the fun stuff. He graduated from Spanish Fork High right here. His wife, Karen, they have 5 children. They reside here in Spanish Fork. In his leisure time, he enjoys reading a wide variety of books, going to the theater, church service, and supporting student activities that he's at all the time. So we're going to turn the time over to Superintendent Nielsen.
Thanks, Lana. It's good to be with you good friends today. I was sitting here thinking as the four-way test was being recited that that ought to be a required reciting before any social media post is ever made. Anyway, it's good to be with you. I grew up in Spanish Fork, as Lana mentioned. My family moved here in 1975 when I was 9 years old. My dad bought a drugstore down on Main Street called City Drug that probably only a handful of people even remember City Drug. I remember painting the awning on City Drug every summer and doing sidewalk sales and selling pop at the Fiesta Days parade and all those kinds of fun things. So I am a Spanish Fork Main Street kid. In fact, a couple of years ago, last year, I lose track of time, but I was speaking to the BYU McKay School of Education alumni groups. I had an assignment for that talk, and fundamentally my talk was labeled The Things I Learned on 101 North Main, right? Because isn't it amazing the heritage and the experience that we have when we grow up in great communities like Spanish Fork and the other communities that Nebo District serves. So whenever I talk about Nebo District just collectively, I let people know that even though we're a big school district, I'll give you some numbers in a minute on that, but even though we're a big school district, we're still made up of relatively small towns, if Spanish Fork is still a relatively small town. And because of that, we have that kind of that small town barn raising kind of feel and mentality, don't we? Yeah. And so it's really probably what I love most about living here and working here is just the community feel that we have and the commitment to service. My dad, Clyde, if you know Clyde and Norma, a lot of you do, but he's been a Kiwanian for as long as I can remember. I used to think I couldn't say that at a Rotary meeting, and then I learned you guys all just like each other and help each other out, right? So just a matter of which line you decided to sign 45 years ago or something like that. So in short, I have an appreciation, a recognition, an acknowledgement of the work that great service-minded folks do in our communities, and hope that I'm like that in my daily work as well. So I've got stuff I can talk about. I can talk about Nebo District for a long, long time. And so maybe I'll prime the pump on some things and talk through some things, and then I'm more than happy to field questions if you have them. So we fluctuate between being number 5, 6, or 7 in the state of Utah. Okay, so you got 4 districts that are really big. Alpine, Davis, Granite, Jordan are all probably even 20,000 or students more than Nebo School District is. And then you've got like Nebo, Washington County School District, Weber School District, Canyons District. We're all kind of in this 35,000 student range. Interestingly enough, so there's 41 districts in Utah. Again, we're one of the top 5 to 8 biggest here. Nationally, we're in like the top 2% of districts. So it's very rare to have a district of 35,000 students in the country. I would bet, I haven't seen a report lately, but if you ran a report of school district sizes in the nation, we're probably one of the 400 biggest districts in the nation. Because a lot of states have just a whole bunch of really small school districts, like every town is its own school district, or like an elementary school might be its own school district across the country. So we're a big district, but like I said earlier, I love that we have a small town feel because of just the demographics of our school district. So again, about 36,200. You might have interest. This is really some post-pandemic stuff here. We've started even more strenuously since the pandemic. We now have a K-12 online school in Nebo District. We always provided some online opportunities for our secondary students, our 7 through 12 students, but now we actually offer a K-12 online school, and we have about 270 students enrolled in that online school. So we house that in our Advanced Learning Center down in Salem. We have teachers that staff it. We run IEPs for students that are in special ed. We have administration and counseling services, so 270 kids involved with online. Another thing you might have interest in knowing is there's a fair number of families that choose to homeschool their children, and we acknowledge that. I actually sign every homeschool affidavit for any student in all of Nebo District's boundary that is homeschooled. They fill out an affidavit, bring it to the school district, and I sign all of those so that we make record of those families that are choosing to homeschool their children, and we honor that desire on their part. It struck us a few years ago, a handful of years ago, that perhaps we could do a better job of providing resources as well. So we actually contracted with a local gentleman. He lived here in Spanish Fork for a long time. He now lives in Springville. Matt Bowman is his name, if you know Matt and Amy Bowman. So they run a program called called My Tech High, and it's a non-credit granting program, so it really is just curricular information. So we're partnered with My Tech High to provide curriculum offerings, primarily again for families that are choosing to homeschool. And we've got 1,700 kids that are enrolled in My Tech High. I lied, that's the total. We got 1,470 kids enrolled in My Tech High. Now that's not just Nebo District students. Those might be students that are in places all across the state as well. We just happen to serve as the LEA or the local education agency there. So really, that when I'm saying that we've got 36,200 students, 300 students enrolled, it's in all of those programs added together. So the nice thing about Nebo is we're growing. That's about we projected growth of about 300 and something kids last year, projected growth of 385. So we're actually up about 820 students this year over where we were last year. But again, that's kids that are going to our schools, kids that are involved in our online school, and kids that are involved in My Tech High. So probably no surprise to you that we're growing, right? Because if you drive around, you see a whole lot of rooftops going up. So we got a lot of in-migration that's coming into Nebo School District. When you're in a growing district, that's a benefit because our funding primarily comes from the state. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But we're in Nebo District, we're fundamentally subsidized by the state. And so for the students that come in, they send us money for those students through the WPU and other forums. So enrollment growth is a good problem to have if you're a school district. It's very difficult to manage a school district that has declining enrollment, which some school districts do. Because if you have declining enrollment, then you already have your facilities, you have your staff, you have your expenses, and then if you have declining enrollment, you have less revenue coming in. So declining enrollment districts are actually finding themselves in positions where they have to lay staff off and reduce programs and things like that. Growing districts, that's not typically the problem that we find ourselves faced with. So that's a little bit on enrollments. Just one other thing I like to share in settings like this, we're either the 5th or 6th largest employer in Utah County as well. I always say 5th because the other one that's about our size is Vivint, and I know where Vivint's workforce is. They're all over the place, right? Doing summer sales and things like that. So your biggest employers in Utah County are BYU, UVU, IHC, Alpine District, Nebo District.
Wow.
Now you might have noticed something about all 5 of those largest employers. What is it that none of them pay? They are all education and none of them pay taxes. So your biggest employers in Utah County are non-tax paying entities, right? And then we're largely bedroom communities as well. And so really most of our local revenue here comes from property tax revenue. And we can talk about that a little bit later if you want. So there's maybe just some information about Nebo School District. Any questions about kind of that, just our demographics and growth and things? Yeah?
You know, I guess this is, you know about how many students you have that are homeless?
Ooh, I haven't asked for that report, but I'll tell you this, it is always a lot more than people think. Yeah. Last night, I want to say it's maybe in like the 800 student range, right? Mm-hmm. Is it up there now? Okay, yeah, so you're 1,500 to 1,800 is the last thing that I had.
And this, when I ask this question, it makes
Yeah.
it hard to ask it, but does it mean they are living with a relative, or are they actually living out of a car, or?
A blend of both. Yeah, a blend of both. I would tell you that 1,500 to 1,800 range is that they're having to live with a relative because they cannot financially afford to be on their own. The number I was giving you was probably more in the really struggling with any kind of housing at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it's demographics are always more stark than we think they are. Yeah, we we a lot of times just look around our neighborhoods and think that this entire South Utah County is exactly like the 4-block radius that we live in, and it really is not. We're still though, our free and reduced lunch rate is still not as high as other districts. You know, that's kind of how we track some demographics and things. So we're still much more vanilla, or whatever the right word would be for that, you know, but we definitely have increases with more challenging demographics than we've had in the past. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, I asked that because of the housing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a huge issue.
Yeah, it's a major issue, isn't it? Let me talk a little bit about some things that came down from the legislature last year, and even maybe more so how we applied those revenue streams in Nebo School District, because these are your friends and neighbors. We have about 4,500 employees in Nebo School District. So when I say we're the 5th largest employer, that puts it in context for you, how many people we have working for us. So just our Nebo District budget, about 11% of our budget this last year was coming from federal funds. So you might hear things about, well, federal money, well, 11% of our budget is federal funds, okay? And that's school lunch and all kinds of things like that, special ed, title programs, et cetera. About 70% of our Nebo District budget comes from state funds. So that's why I said earlier that we're in large part subsidized by the state, because again, 70% of our money comes from state funds. You heard probably about a WPU increase of 6.0%. So that's what we're talking about, or in large part what we're talking about when we say state funds are flowing. Then about 19% of our Nebo District budget comes from local funds, and that again is primarily out of property taxes, and those go to our bond funds to pay off our bonds and our building construction, some things with transportation, et cetera. And then on average, about 85% of our total budget in Nebo District goes to employee compensation and benefits. So the largest amount of our money is going to pay those 4,500 people. So I just, again, think that's information that's interesting for local businesses and folks to know. Yes, please.
You said state funds,
Uh-huh.
primarily income taxes.
Yeah, income tax funds. Yeah, absolutely. Income tax and some with property tax as well. But yeah, you hear a lot about income tax funds at the state level. And right now, income tax is earmarked for education. Amendment G, 3 years ago, opened that earmark up a little bit. It opened it up to some senior populations and a little bit to children in need. So income tax has been opened up a little bit. And incidentally, income tax used to always be earmarked for K-12 education. A couple of decades ago, it was opened up to be for all education. So K-12 and higher ed has income tax uses. So over time, there's been a little bit of loosening on what income tax funds can be used for. The legislature ran a bill last year, not a bill, the legislature was floating an idea last year to open up income tax funds even to other uses beyond what the limited scope is right now as well. I'm sure there will be more conversations this year about more flexible use of income tax funds other than just for education and those narrow things. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you, Nebo School District, do you have the opportunity, or is it just normal trust fund?
Yeah, oh yeah. So school land trust, every school district receives money through the school land trust funds. So that would be under that state fund umbrella. I haven't looked recently to see how much is coming our way through trust lands. It's usually around in about the $5 million mark. The interesting thing about trust lands funds, though, is it goes directly to the schools. So it doesn't come to the district office to make decisions about employee compensation and programs and things. It goes directly to the schools for the school community council to make decisions on expenditure of trust lands funds. So,
Every year, though.
oh yeah, There's a conversation that bubbles up every few years at the legislature about sweeping the trust land fund and putting it towards more earmarked kinds of things. So far, those initiatives haven't gone anywhere, or those ideas haven't gone anywhere. So the trust lands funds are still going directly to the schools. And the money that's going to the schools isn't the trust lands money itself, it's the revenue off of the trust lands investment. So it's pretty well managed in that regard. Yeah.
So I guess my question,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, it's well managed because it's grown
Yeah,
almost 2 billion. It
Yeah.
continues to go up.
correct.
Why would we not use that a little more than just to continue to allow it to go up and up and up? It doesn't,
That's the
it's a $64 question.
Yeah, that's the annual debate up on the Hill, you're right. The other thing I'll tell you on trust lands as well, until about maybe 99, Utah had not done very much at all with investing with their trust lands. So you had other states that had large trust lands reserves. Utah had almost nothing going on. And so they made a conscientious effort a couple of decades ago to invest more fully in trust lands. So you saw it kind of go like this, and now it's going like this. And now that's why it's the $64 question. It's because, yeah, where's it going to go in the future? Yeah. Question? Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the discussion they should have on Social Security. They hadn't dipped
Yeah.
into the trust fund.
Yeah.
The seniors
Yeah.
would be sitting fine. And
Yeah.
if that trust fund's allowed to be dipped into, where's the progress for the future?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you have elected officials. Yeah. You're hitting on you're very astute on what that conversation is. Yeah.
On the average, what does the average school get from trust funds each year?
Ooh, average is hard because it's a per pupil allocation, and you've got high schools of 1,650 kids, and then you got elementaries of 350 kids. So I don't remember what the dollar amount is, but you've got elementary schools probably getting in the $25,000 range, but you've probably got high schools getting in the $90,000 range. Yeah, yeah. So with what the legislature did last year, sent money to the school district. You've kind of heard where the revenue streams are. This is what we did with employee compensation and benefits. So last year, all of our employees got a 6.25% increase on their salary. Interestingly enough, our beginning teacher salary, so first year teacher with a bachelor's degree, beginning teacher salary is at $50,369. So 6 or 7 years ago, that was $34,000. So we've moved the needle $16,000 in a 6 or 7 year window. So I hope you can see that that's been a significant commitment on the part of our Board of Education and our staff to say, we got to move the needle on beginning teacher salaries, and then you turn around and you have a 8% or 10% inflation, right? So those go ahead and negatively affect that. But last year our employee increase was a 5.5% increase. So we're really working hard in Nebo District. We've got a great board. We've got great budget managers that are good conservative budgeters that really want to make sure that we invest as much as we can back in students and the people that serve students. I mean, that really is the commitment there. So you might also be interested to know we have what's called a classified salary schedule as well. That's folks like lunch workers, bus drivers, custodians, and things. For the adults, we moved the minimum wage on that to $15 an hour. And then we have a lot of student sweepers that just help clean after hours. We moved that hourly rate to $11 an hour for our student sweepers. We made some adjustments on how much we pay folks to do professional development. If our teachers have to teach on their preparation time, we actually compensate them for losing their preparation time, so we put some money towards that. And our substitute teachers are making $100 a day, basically, so we tried to increase substitute teacher pay. The legislature set aside some money for some additional work hours and additional assignments as well. And then maybe the last couple things I'll speak to just on benefits and things for our employees. In Nebo District, we're now on a handful of years of running our own health clinic. So we have our Nebo District Health and Wellness Center. So our employees that are on our insurance, they and their dependents can go to our clinic for their physicals, for some prescriptions, for lab work, those kinds of things. Just tried to do those kinds of things so that we make sure and have appropriate offerings. The other thing we were really sensitive to do is to not make it such a big splash that we negatively impacted our other physicians and clinics in the area. Like John Taylor's on our school board. This started before John came on board, but he was on community councils and things. But we didn't want to do something that was so big that we pulled our entire workforce out of the local providers. So we tried to hit a sweet spot on that, and we think we've done that where a lot of folks still stayed with their current providers, but some folks have moved over to our health and wellness center. It's open 4 days a week. I don't even know how many appointments they run a day out of there. Maybe 20 appointments a day or something out of there. So anyway, that's something that we've introduced for our employees. And then the last thing is we just opened up a fitness center. So it's got state-of-the-art weights and treadmills and ellipticals, and it's got 3 indoor pickleball courts that our people can schedule. So that's just a free offering that we have for all of our employees. So we try to be a good employer and a good partner in the community as well when it comes to these things. We don't want to do things that'll cause problems for partners in the community as well. So 5 minutes, great. What other questions do you have?
I'm curious, where's your fitness center and your?
Uh-huh.
I was just gonna ask.
Okay, so our old warehouse that's right there on the side of where our Nebo District offices are, we turned the south half of the old warehouse into our fitness center. So if you drive to Russell Swenson Ballpark and you look to your left, you'll see on our warehouse we now have a sign above that says Nebo District Fitness Center. And then the clinic is right there adjacent to that. It's a tin building that runs right along the Russell Swenson Ballpark parking lot. That was our carpet storage location until we moved our warehouse down to Salem. And we turned that carpet storage into a training facility and a clinic. So, yep. So we've repurposed old buildings to provide services to our folks. Yeah. What other questions do you have? Yeah.
I don't know really how to word it.
Yeah.
I was having a patient was talking to me about basically kids being taught like socialism.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just kind of
Yeah.
wondering how real is things like that where certain
Yeah.
topics might be more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know how to word that question.
No, that's
I'm
fair.
just curious to see if that's
Yeah.
a real issue, a real problem, or is that just somebody?
I know there's a really loud national narrative related to social emotional learning, socialism, critical race theory, those kinds of things. And so I don't ever want to diminish the concern that folks have on that. From my perspective, we try to be super vigilant that our educators realize that they are partners with parents when it comes to education, and that we ought to be making sure that in our schools that we're aware of what our social norms are here in Nebo School District in South Utah County. So we work hard to not have those things as elements and components of what's being taught in classrooms. I think we do a good job of avoiding those topics that would be of concern to some folks. And that doesn't mean that, if you've got 1,800 teachers, there might be somebody that says something someday, right? So I'm never a never say never kind of guy. I do realize that somebody might do something or say something, and my invitation always to moms and dads on that is please make us aware, right? If you're aware of a concern, our recommendation would be go talk to the teacher first. And if you have questions and concerns that you don't get resolved with the teacher, please go talk to your building level administrator. If you don't get resolution with things with your building level administrator, then you're welcome to call into the district office and talk to our folks there that provide supervision. So again, I don't want to diminish the concerns, because I think they're very real concerns to folks. I don't think that there's widespread teaching of subjects that would be concerning or content that would be concerning. Is that an answer? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and maybe I'll just say this. I mean, I grew up here. I live here. My nieces and nephews are here. My youngest son just graduated from here. When I was hired as superintendent, my kids were a first grader to an 11th grader, 12th grader. And so, I mean, we're your neighbors. We're your friends. We moved here because we have similar values and commitments. And so that's why I always say, if there's concerns, bring them to our attention. But by and large, I don't believe that there's widespread concerns with that. Yeah.
Speaking of curriculum decisions,
Yeah.
what level are those made at?
Yeah.
Individual teacher, the school, the district,
Yeah.
the state, the federal?
Yeah, so the State Office of Education, State Board of Education, set the standards, right? So that's your standards and objectives. So we have to teach to the state office's standards and objectives. Then the school district selects the curricular materials that are used as the primary sources to teach those standards. So the school district selects that. Then it's primarily collaborative teams, so teams of teachers. They would then also select what I would call ancillary materials to that, right? Like, here's the reading, the adopted reading program, and here's supplemental or ancillary materials we use to support that. Yeah. And I mean, we work really hard, like the state doesn't adopt the standards without going through the open and public meeting process. Any district-wide curriculums we adopt through the district-wide adoption process, which involves the board approving it in board meeting. And then when you get to those supplemental materials, what we ask our educators to do is make sure that in their disclosure documents and their messaging to parents know what materials are being used and what those resources are. So we try to be transparent. We work hard to be transparent. That's why I always say, if it feels to somebody like we haven't answered their questions, or if we're not transparent, I always invite people, then please go talk to the teacher. Please go talk to them. They want to be transparent. They want to work in concert with mom and dad to teach the content, the standards to students. Yeah.
I didn't hear the whole thing on KSL, but it said something like 33% of students are test qualified for college or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Heard that? Seen the, or I was wondering if there's any elaboration on that, or as far as
Yeah.
kids' level of, like I said, I didn't hear the
Yeah.
whole thing. I just heard like,
Yeah. So I have, as Lana said, I have a couple of other assignments with universities that I work with as well. And so right now, I think about a third of Utah students are enrolled in post-secondary education within 5 years of graduation from high school, which is a legitimate concern for the system of higher education in Utah. So yeah, they're definitely working in concerts with school districts and high schools to increase that number. My suspicion would be in Nebo School District that we're better than that trend, but we still have kids that are choosing to not enroll. We can always be better at preparing kids for post-secondary ed. We tend to trend higher in Nebo School District on our ACT performance scores, and our concurrent enrollment participation actually is off the charts, concurrent enrollment participation. We do a lot with advanced placement as well. So we tend to trend better in Nebo than what even the statewide statistics are. But yeah, we can always be better at preparing kids to be college ready. Yeah.
When I interviewed Lana
Yeah.
kind of during 2020,
Yeah.
the COVID pandemic, mental health and the
Yeah.
students really came to the forefront. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, what have you seen with, mental health among your students?
Yeah.
How has that helped, what have you done to help them?
The pandemic took a toll on mental health. Yeah. Pandemic took a toll, K-12, probably systemically, culturally as well on mental health. So we have a lot of interventions in place to help kids with mental health. To my knowledge, every one of our schools has kind of a wellness room that kids can go to. We have one counselor for every 2 elementary schools in Nebo District, which is a much higher ratio than most have. We're looking to even drop our secondary counselor ratio even lower, try to make sure we have appropriate programs in place, heavily promote the Safe UT app. That's how we get tips on things that are going on with kids that are in crisis. When we have a crisis response team that is at the ready and there immediately. So, that we can prevent every crisis, right? And it's probably one of the hardest things about my job is that I know if you're going to have 36,000 students, you're going to have some heartbreak, right? It's just kind of the way it is. And even one heartbreak is one heartbreak too many. So we'll keep doing the things that we can, partnering again with families and other partners to try to avoid having any heartbreaks. But we have a lot of interventions in place and we have a lot of responses in place. Yeah. I've said throughout my life, I don't know whether I'm an optimistic pessimist or a pessimistic optimist, right? We do great things. We can always be better. So I think it was maybe a Saturn commercial many years ago that talked about being in the relentless pursuit of perfection. And I'd say that that's where we're at. We think we do good things for students. In fact, we know we do good things for kids. And we're so grateful for our partnerships with parents and in our community, because we're one contributor to doing good things for kids, right? We're a big contributor. We have them a lot of every single day for 180 days. We believe we do good things. We also don't believe that we're perfect. We don't believe we've arrived. We're always looking to say, what can we do to be that much better for kids?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me come.